That guest engagement platform is using an AI. At one point, before anybody in hospitality had really caught on, we believe we had the world's largest large language model in hospitality because we were enabled for 5,000 hotels, engaging with that guest via text message in 100 different languages, with 400,000 guests checking in and out every day. Think how quickly we're building and teaching that model.
Welcome to Technovation. I'm your host, Peter High. My guest today is Scott Strickland. Scott is the Executive Vice President and Chief Commercial Officer of Wyndham Hotels and Resorts, the fifth largest American hotel company with nearly $1.5 billion in revenue for 2025. Scott took on his current role in January of 2024, following nearly 7 years as the company's Chief Information Officer. As Chief Commercial Officer, Scott's responsible for developing and implementing Wyndham Hotels and Resorts information and distribution strategy, optimizing distribution and revenue across all channels. He's also responsible for developing and executing marketing and public relations, group sales initiatives, managing all call centers and related services, and growing 25 brands across 9,200 hotels in 95 countries and 6,000 plus franchisees. I look forward to hearing about all this and more through this conversation. Scott, welcome back to Technovation. It's great to speak with you today.
Great to see you again, Peter. Thank you.
Yes, excellent. Well, maybe we begin with an overview of Wyndham Hotels and Resorts business, if you don't mind. Fill in some of the blanks beyond what I've just provided in the introduction, if you would.
It was a great intro, Peter, to somebody who hasn't actually been into our office building yet. When we look at Wyndham, you did a great job of kind of describing what we do. I think to really understand us, it's how we do it that's so important. And there's really two key things that we use to differentiate ourselves. One is our owner-first philosophy. So we have 6,000 franchisees. These are small business owners, but basically 6,000 franchisees who own our 9,000 hotels, which means each one of them has about 1.5 hotels. So when we design something, whether it's technology, loyalty, a marketing program, or a guest service program, we have to think, if I'm running that hotel, what's that going to do for my bottom line? Am I going to invest my hard-earned dollars into that program? So it's the owner-first philosophy. The second is what we call the Wyndham Advantage. When you join a franchise, you join usually for 2 or 3 reasons. One is, I join it because I believe the brand is going to continue to grow. Take some of your biggest franchises out there, your Wendy's, your McDonald's, your Domino's. If you got in at the bottom level of any one of those brands, man, you are doing great. So it's a brand focus. Secondly, it's, what's a differentiator on this? Is it their loyalty program? Is it their product? Is it something of that nature? So when you think about us, we believe it's our product. Our product comprises our rooms. Absolutely. It's also our loyalty program. It's also our service program. It's all bundled together into what makes a Wyndham product. And then thirdly, nowadays, it's the technology. You join a franchise because if you're an independent owner, if you're an independent hotel owner, you have to connect out into the Expedias and the Booking.coms of the world. You have to pay that high commission. You have to come up with some way to run a mobile app. You have to come up with some way to run and schedule your housekeepers. There's a lot of overhead in doing that. So you choose a brand or choose to franchise because, hey, we're going to provide that technology package. So those are the 3 reasons we believe somebody chooses to come and franchise with us. And it's absolutely critical to everything that we do.
And talk a bit about your role as Chief Commercial Officer. I'm interested in, I mentioned an array of things that are within your responsibilities. Talk a bit about that, now your second role within the company.
It is. And when you were describing it, Peter, I actually got a little tired. I was like, wow, that's a lot. It is. So as you indicated, I've been CIO for a number of years. And what we found during the last couple of years of my CIO tenure is that I was in all the meetings with our head of loyalty. I was in all the meetings with our head of revenue management. I was in there when we were talking distribution or sometimes even PR, because so much of what we communicate is that Wyndham advantage, the technology advantage. So it became a natural extension to a degree to evolve the role and to say marketing nowadays is so digital in nature. So much of what we want to offer through our loyalty program is digital in nature. So much of the way we engage our guest is done via a mobile app or done via their device in a virtual manner, that just makes sense as well to fold into the program. So our CEO looked at this and he said, I'm going to create a new role. I'm going to create a chief commercial officer. And guess what, Scott? You're still going to be responsible for IT and security and infrastructure, sure, but you're going to take on these other roles. And why? Because we believe technology is foundational to all of it. And it turns out he was right. It's not, imagine that, but it's not just a matter of the technology being foundational. There's actually been synergies in here that we've seen beyond the cost level. Synergies in terms of people being aligned on our priorities, synergies in terms of us all, rowing together here after some of this, and people seeing things in other areas where maybe they hadn't seen them before and finding a way to solve it in a different way. And I'll give you some examples of that, I'm sure, a little bit later.
I'm looking forward to it, certainly. And really interesting to know, of course, as I mentioned, nearly 7 years as the Chief Information Officer. Now, all these additional responsibilities, you mentioned a lot of these, you were in meetings discussing these topics that now are disciplines that are under your purview. And talk a little bit about the process of developing your own perspectives and responsibilities. Naturally, you'd been with the company, you'd been in the meetings, you understood, how these were advancing and so on. But moving from being a contributor to those conversations to responsibility over them, that's different. And I'm curious, talk a bit about that learning process for you as you expanded your responsibilities so tremendously.
It certainly is. It is a big difference in terms of owning them versus contributing. However, learning about the domain area itself is the benefit of having, quote unquote, been in those meetings and replacing those foundational systems. For example, we went through a negotiation with Booking.com, and I was part of that discussion the entire time. And then we replaced the way that we connected with them as well. As part of that, I learned the ins and outs of Booking and learned what it means to connect with one of our most important partners. We did the same thing with our loyalty system. We replaced our loyalty system of 8 years with a brand new loyalty system. In doing so, we went through the classic requirements gathering, to design to implementation phase, but you learn a lot of that domain as part of it. You're absolutely right, though. I mean, knowing a little bit of that domain and now suddenly running it, well, guess what? You rely on those same leadership skills that you have in any area. Whether you're running an IT organization, a security organization, an infrastructure organization, or a digital one, or now a loyalty and marketing and communications, it doesn't matter. What makes you a good leader remains the same. Empower your people, give them the resources that they need, resolve conflict, and get the hell out of the way. That's standard regardless of what domain you're leading, and I've continued to fall back on those. It's fairly simple, in many cases. It's getting it done that's the hard part, but the leadership part oftentimes feels fairly simple.
Yeah, very interesting. And you mentioned that technology, digital is kind of a layer across all of this that in some ways becomes the glue across these various disciplines that are now part of what you lead. Talk a bit about some of the intersection between those and innovations that are being derived as a result of marketing and technology, for example, having a tighter alignment under a single leader in ways perhaps that are different from the past.
Certainly. A good example of this is we just launched something, we're calling it the Wyndham Gateway. It's not revolutionary because it's you come and visit us at one of our days in, Peter, you log in to our Wi-Fi, you get free Wi-Fi if you give us your email or your SMS contact information. Great. Otherwise, though, you can't get onto the Wi-Fi. Delta is doing it already. Some of the other places are doing it. Not revolutionary. It's a standard piece of technology we're putting into all of our hotels. What is revolutionary is because I owned property technology before, but now I have loyalty, as I've said, okay, we're going to let you onto Wi-Fi, but as part of that, you're opting in to become a loyalty member. And you're opting into future marketing. And you're going to opt into promotions from us, and we're going to be able to contact you and own that relationship one-to-one in a way we never had before. Oh, and guess what? So that's a benefit absolutely for us and for you, but it's a benefit to the franchisee as well, because we're the first in the industry that have said, we're removing loyalty enrollment targets. Because we're giving you a piece of technology, Mr. Property Owner, Mr. Hotel Owner, you don't have to have and enroll a certain number of people into our loyalty program every time. You don't have to be there at the front desk. The tech is going to do it for you. You focus on servicing that guest. Don't worry about enrolling them because we're going to handle it. Well, that's huge for them because now they don't have to train their folks on that. They don't have to worry about it. And we've taken it a step further. We've said, and we're going to reward you for good guest service. We're going to conduct random surveys of our guests, and where they call out one of your employees, those dollars before that we may have gained from loyalty enrollment, missed target fees, we're going to give back to you. So we launched an entire service enablement program. So take that from the start again. A Wyndham Gateway, where you have to give us some contact information to get onto the internet at the hotel, to becoming a loyalty member, to removing targets, to enabling the front desk, to enabling a service-based culture. All because this moved under one leader and all the right folks got together in the room and talked through what we could do here that was absolutely revolutionary. And we're the first in the industry to do it. None of our competitors are doing it.
Incredible. That's a fantastic example, certainly, Scott. Thank you for that. As you mentioned at the outset and continue to echo through your responses, the sanctity of the relationship with the franchisees, given the fact that it is such a franchise model in which you operate. Obviously, they are in many ways your customer, but the technology you're using is meant to then impact their customer, the broader customer, of course, of Wyndham. Talk a little bit about the way in which you think about that bifurcation, if you will, and means by which you draw insights that help you identify the most appropriate and innovative solutions that will ultimately impact the guest, who is the head in a bed, so to say, in each of your hotel rooms.
I love that you know that term, head in a bed, or in some cases, in some of our areas, it's boots in beds, because so much of what we do and what our hotels offer are for that crew that's out there doing something on the infrastructure. So there's so many good ideas in terms of ways that we can engage with that guest, that what we've done is we engage with our franchisee advisory councils. We say, we have ideas. Here's our top 10 ideas. What are yours? Let's marry those up. And guess what? It's probably not 20 at this juncture. It's probably more like 12. And then we prioritize those top 12 based on perceived business return or business value. And then we go out and we execute them. An example of that is we coined a term, first in the industry, guest engagement platform, where we were looking at something that we could engage that guest 24 hours prior to arrival to 6 hours after they check out, and own that relationship on their mobile device for them, sending them a text before they came, allowing them to perform mobile check-in, allowing them to upgrade their room while they're on site, interacting with us via text messages and the like to ask for any additional amenities or any questions or concerns they may have. And then upon checkout, digitally tipping our housekeepers, as well as if they wanted to spend a little extra time in their room, being able to request a later checkout. And then finally, of course, writing a review. So we have all of this functionality on a single platform that handles that pre-stay, on-property, post-stay. And it was an idea that we came up with our franchisees. They had some components of it. We had some components of it. We engaged with a third party and we co-developed it and then coined the idea of a guest engagement platform. And now you hear other companies out there saying, yeah, we're launching our guest engagement platform. I'm like, yay, welcome to the party. That's because that's the channel nowadays that, of course, guests do want to engage on.
Very interesting. For those who see the video of this, they'll see your many brands just over your head here. And I wonder, you talk a little bit about how you think about that which applies across all of those brands versus those attributes of what you're doing that need to be specific to a given brand or a couple of them based on a variety of factors I'm sure you might highlight.
When we look at our brands, we offer everything from an economy-based hotel to travel lodge, typically located near a national park, all the way up to our registry collections, which are unique luxury experiences with a sense of place. So those are our brands. And you're exactly right in terms of there are different aspects, there are different things we're going to want to offer for different brands. Something we've always prided ourselves on, though, has been the democratization of travel. That's something that one of our original mission statements was making travel available for all. Our new marketing tagline is actually where there's a Wyndham, there's a way. So regardless of what type of travel you want, we have a Wyndham for you. Where there's a Wyndham, there's a way. And so we looked at that and we said, absolutely. There are some things in luxury that are not going to apply to our Howard Johnson customer. For example, the ability to be on the mobile app and to request a spa appointment, or to have more towels delivered to your room, or to request your car to be delivered on valet. So that's a subset of functionality that we're going to hide from our guests when they're at one of those brands. However, we can enable it for our guests when they're at one of our high-end brands. So when we do our design, what we try to do is we build the superset onto the platform, and then we configure and switch on and switch off various function points depending on the franchisee's need. We have some franchisees that perhaps they are running a full serve hotel, but they don't want to enable the request for towels feature, for example, because they know they may not have the staff for it, or they want to have more of a personalized interaction and have them actually call down. Absolutely fine. So we can make that configurable for them so that they don't have to. But when we build it again, we do it for the superset and then we adjust it accordingly. Another thing that we look at there is what are some of the guest preferences? So as a guest, we can immediately, remember I was talking about our guest engagement platform. If you don't want us to interact with you there, at that very first text message, at that very first text message, you can say no. Okay, no problem. You can have a more old school, more traditional experience if you want. Absolutely fine. You may forego some of the benefits in terms of, an early check-in or something of that nature, but that may be absolutely a-okay for you as well.
Yeah, interesting examples all. I appreciate you kind of underscoring each of those. It also strikes me as you describe your purview, as you describe the sources of innovation, underneath all of that is data and the creative use of that data, collection of it, synthesizing of it, drawing insights from it, taking actions based upon it. And we talked a little bit before going on the record about artificial intelligence and its evolution and use within an organization like yours. Talk a bit about how you think about the basics and strategy associated with data and how you're now leveraging it perhaps with the more advances that are coming into play with artificial intelligence, please.
We alluded to earlier that this is the second time that I've been on the program, and it's been a journey for us. And that journey has always included data standardization. So at this point, it's been a 9-year journey. We're on record as having spent $350 million in terms of modernizing our technology platforms. And every one of those programs has included some sort of data cleanup activity. So because of that, whether it's just standardization or transport or housing that data in a cloud-based environment where it can be easily accessible, in every one of those cases, we prepped ourselves for AI. So when the time came to flip on and enable some of these AI-enabled capabilities, we've been able to do so very, very quickly. We have some, for examples. I'll go back because I've educated everybody already on it a little bit onto that guest engagement platform. That guest engagement platform is using an AI. At one point, before anybody in hospitality had really caught on, we believe we had the world's largest large language model in hospitality because we were enabled for 5,000 hotels, engaging with that guest via text message in 100 different languages with 400,000 guests checking in and out every day. Think how quickly we're building and teaching that model on things, everything from when does the pool open to what's the nearest restaurant, to what's check-in and check-out time. So we built and trained that AI model. And then where it couldn't answer something, it learned to ask for help. We implemented that feature about 9 months ago, and it would actually reach out to the front desk or reach out to us at corporate and say, I've received 155 inquiries on the nearest restaurant for Mexican food. Can you help me with this? I mean, I'm being purposefully pedantic here, but that's exactly what it does. So then all we have to do is tell it, okay, well, there's a Taco Bell around the corner, or if you prefer something more traditional, there's an El Humidor. Great. So we've been able to use AI to augment that guest service experience. That's from a guest-facing standpoint on property. From a central standpoint, of course, we've applied AI across our call centers. So that's been serving to augment our guest service agents so that when Peter calls in, we know your loyalty status. It sends us the last upgrade that you had, your preferred bed type, how much you spend with us, the last place you stayed. It tells us if maybe or maybe not your partial to land's in. So it pulls all of this together via our CDP. So now when we're talking to you in our guest service line, we can have a more personal connection to you. And then it suggests next best action. Hey, maybe you should ask Peter if he wants to make a reservation, or if he's not interested in this hotel, here's one he might be interested in, because it sounds like he's looking for a resort vacation on the beach. We can do that now. And so it's kind of fun to think about what we'll be able to do in the future as we continue to learn more about our guests and teach that AI model. So that's how we've been looking at it. Is how do we use AI to delight that guest, to augment a lot of our own team members, and to gain new insights on truly who our customer is.
We talked about how your role has expanded. We've talked a bit about the innovation that's happening at the intersection of the different disciplines. Anything else you would call out in terms of new ways of collaborating or partnering across those disciplines as a result, again, of having a leader across so many different topics?
It's been a lot of fun to have everybody in our staff meeting. So we have our loyalty lead, we have our sales lead, we have our technology. I always invite legal. It's good to have them in there regardless. And we start to talk and brainstorm about the art of the possible. We start to talk about some of the initiatives that we're leaning into. So for example, everyone knows personalization is a trend. And as soon as we get our loyalty person in there, he's like, I need to develop some campaigns really specific to the gaming industry because we're partners with Caesars right now. How do you guys think we could do that? And suddenly everybody's brainstorming, and our CTO is saying, well, we have all of this information available from a data standpoint. Our marketing person saying, we can dynamically generate some of these images from our existing content library and put them in there. We have a digital supply chain for it. People are starting to just engage and he's like, oh yeah, this will be great. And I can identify by loyalty value and perhaps even give them bonus points if they sign up from us. And you see the campaign that ultimately our guest is going to see come to life in the space of about 5 minutes on a whiteboard. Whereas before, all those people were never in a room and all those people were never necessarily incented, in terms of getting behind this and making it happen. As we look at this, we say repeatedly within the commercial organization, 2026 is going to be our year. 2025 is when we're establishing a lot of the foundation, learning how to work together, signing up new partners. We've signed up, this is a lot of fun. Who would have thought an old IT guy, but we've signed up Madison Square Garden. We've signed up Live Nation. We made a big announcement with Applebee's, and there's more announcements there. But signing up a lot of these partners that allow us, once again, to give that value to the guest. As we look at them, now let's enable those partnerships. Let's enable all the data that we've collected out into 2026, now that we've established the foundation from a technology, from a partnership, from a marketing, from a go-to-market strategy standpoint.
We'll look forward to seeing this continue to progress in the year ahead, certainly, Scott. Thank you.
It's going to be cool, Peter. It's going to be super cool. I can't, yeah, there's really cool stuff that all of our members and potential guests will see.
Fantastic. For others who might be listening or listening to you watching this, who are current CIOs, say, but have aspirations to grow their responsibilities in a way akin to the ways you've done so, I wonder, do you have advice for them on things that you did to prepare yourself for an opportunity like the one that you've seized?
Fundamentally, leadership is leadership regardless of function, as I alluded to a little bit earlier. But beyond that, it's always putting yourself out there. Always ask for the additional responsibility. Always sit down, spend time with a lot of your business counterparts and say, how can I help? What could we do? Go with them to a conference, even if it's not your domain area, and start to learn about it. Because all of your skills in terms of being a good people leader and organizing and a strategist apply in other areas. And there's no reason you shouldn't ask for some additional responsibility. I think additionally, it's recognizing that relationships matter. And so often people will look and they'll focus on things that are fun and internal, but it's those external relationships, whether it's with partners, the business, with vendors, that ultimately matter and allow you to grow as well and to gain a lot of that exposure that you may not have had before.
That's wise counsel. Thank you for sharing that,
It's,
Scott.
I hope it's wise. I absolutely hope it's wise. I think something that surprised me to build on this about the role is part of my role has evolved into salesperson too, as we talk about selling a franchisee on why Wyndham. Because remember, when you join a franchise, you're joining for technology, you're joining for brand, you're joining for some sort of differentiating factor. Well, now that three of those fall under me, when we have a really important franchisee, quite often I'm called upon to explain to them why Wyndham, and to sell them on that. So I think every CIO probably has a little bit of salesperson in her or him right now anyway. And I'd say go ahead and continue to cultivate that inner salesperson too. We're good at selling projects. We have to sell projects. We have to sell ideas. There's no difference in that in selling actual product within your organization.
Any, as you look to the future and you looked at some of the exciting things afoot, any other trends you would call out, Scott, that are particularly exciting you that you think might be sources of innovation or fun, as the case may be, as you look to the future?
I think there are two that jump to mind there. One is user generated content. So if we look at user generated content with what we have in the ability for our guests to generate content for us, I think there's a lot of ways we can capitalize on that and leverage it. And it's more authentic. Nowadays, people are looking for, guests are looking for that UGC, because they don't necessarily trust what corporate may be sending out. But if somebody's posted it out on Facebook or Instagram, it's going to resonate better. So enable more of that user generated content. Take that a step further and start to engage with micro influencers. So, for example, we have a set of extended stay hotels that we're building, and we've engaged with Nurse Nori, and she's a traveling nurse. And that's a big thing, actually, is there's a traveling nurse population that moves around and needs places to stay at 30 to 45 days at a time. And Nurse Nori can explain the benefits of being in an extended stay hotel with a microwave and those sorts of things, as opposed to having to be in a traditional hotel. Suddenly, again, that's an authentic voice. Other people's content is greater than ours, and people find it engaging. The second is also related to content, but it's the digital content supply chain. How do you get the digital content through the supply chain even faster than before? So whether it's a user-generated picture or something we come up with, as AI comes along, our ability to update that content, our ability to make it more unique, our ability to personalize it based on campaign, we won't even have to have people involved. So let's go back to that casino campaign I was talking about for the gaming industry. If we know something about Peter and we're sending you a specific email, why not put in perhaps content that you've interacted with before, or we've seen you with a propensity to click, or even something you've posted on our behalf, and personalize that and send that out. So we believe that's going to be part of the future as well for us, is really optimizing that digital content supply chain and getting it out faster.
Great concepts. Thank you again. Scott, before I let you go, is there anything you've recently watched, read, and or listened to that you'd recommend to others?
So I started listening to the BBC News podcast. It's 20 minutes. It's a deep dive on usually one topic for about 8 to 12 of those minutes, and then touches on 3 or 4 topics very quickly. And what I love about it is there's no bias at all, and it's from an international perspective. So they look at items and issues of the day from a very, very different viewpoint than we may in North America or in the United States. And you'll hear about things you never had considered and get a different view. So it's been fun for me. Beyond that, a guilty pleasure is they just released season 2 of Wednesday on Netflix, which is the Addams Family, everything, but it's a lot of fun. But if you're talking about opening your mind and continuing to be engaged, I've always been a big fan of Prof G and the Prof G podcast and everything. And anybody who hasn't engaged with them, I certainly encourage them to do so. And the other guilty pleasure is every morning I'm a Wordle guy. So one more is I recently went back and reread one of my favorite science fiction authors. So his name is Daniel Keyes Moran, and he wrote a short story. He's written a number of novels, but he wrote a short story called AI: The Big Boost. And it was written about 20 years ago. And it's about AI. And it's about AI being engaged with one of the main characters. And it's really interesting to see what he got right and what the prevalent theories on what AI could and couldn't do versus what it is now and where we're headed. So it's been fun to trot some of that out. And so now I want to go back and read some of the other classics, and really see how far along are we and what are we still missing as we talk about, even Asimov in the three laws of robotics. Is there something in there that maybe we should all be thinking about as we design some of our new LLMs?
Well, good insights into the ways in which you stay informed, but also have some fun at the same time, Scott. And I want to thank you so much for a terrific conversation covering a number of topics representative of the great work you and your team are doing. Congratulations on your continuing expanded role, and we'll keep our eyes open for some of the great innovations in the year ahead as well. Thanks for a great conversation, Scott.
Thank you as always, Peter.